Live. We are live, live, live.
All right, what's up?
We are live. Good, good. On Thursday, my MVPs get bumped up times 8.
Mm.
All right, so we're live on the Shrine of My Op Facebook page. Welcome. Come on in, everyone. It's good to see everyone here. Welcome. Sinette Cheryl, Sinette Lauren, welcome. Good to see people coming in. Tonight we have our brother Sanjetti back again. And this man is so smart. We're going to be talking about something else. This is the third time he's been here. We're going to have a third different topic.
Mm.
It always wraps around the Medu Neter because that is what he does. He teaches the Medu Neter and he's good at it. And he explains things very well. And if you ask him the right question, he'll just talk and talk. You'd be like, Dag, I should have been taking notes. And that's just a regular old conversation. That just means the brother is gifted. So I just want to welcome everybody here for another edition of Tuesday Talk. Thank you for your patience in starting at 8:30. I really appreciate it. Hope more West Coast people took advantage of that. So come on in. Good. I see some people from the Shrine of My Aunt. Some of our initiates. Welcome. So tonight we are going to be talking about the Medu Neter, but from a different perspective. We all know that the Medu Neter is the language of our ancient African Kemetic ancestors, and it is what the Greeks called the hieroglyphics. Okay, it's an actual language that is older than the Greeks themselves, so definitely much older than that term. As a lot of you know, the purpose of, or one of the focus that I had for this year with Tuesday Talk was to leave you all with something practical that can help you understand Kemetic spirituality, African spirituality, or Pan Africanism, and then second, immediately apply it. And tonight is no different. So before we get into the topic for tonight, I'm going to read you a very brief bio for Sanjeti. Sanjeti Ankara has been teaching the Medu Neter, ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, for 10 years and has been an instructor at the Institute of Kemetic Philology since 2019. He has been a guest presenter at the Temple University's Pan African Community Education Program, PASCEP, University of Delaware, and a member and presenter at the 2018 and 2019 conferences for the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations, also known as ASCAC. Sanjeti has studied Medu Neter from Ankh Ra, author of Let the Ancestors Speak, Imfudishi Jehutimes Khan Heru, author of Kupagana Ngumi, Spiritual Warriors Are Healers, and The Spirit of the Magi, as well as Sabat Raketi Amen. He is an initiate and royal scribe of the Temple of Anu in Newark, New Jersey. He has a background in biology from Delaware State University and the College of Health Sciences in San Antonio, Texas. So once again, I welcome my brother from another mother, Sanjeti. How you been?
I've been doing good. It's
Good.
always learning and expanding. Thank you for that the introduction. I appreciate it, and just give an honor and praises to my instructors and teachers. Some are ancestors, some are still living.
Mm-hmm.
Praise and honor to the Asar, the great royal scribe, as the ancestor Isahilia called him, Ankh Ra Mahakaru, my first instructor.
Mm-hmm.
And it is in his spirit of critical thinking that I approach such Medu Neter. And with my experiences and privilege of learning from Infudisha Jehudimes, Cotton Heru Hassan Kamal Salim, which added a more experiential uh, experience, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
to such Medu Neter, where Ankh Ra provided the scholastic foundation, which
Okay.
is a solid foundation for deep comprehension And
Okay.
as the ancestor, Dr. Ben would call, like deep African thought. A.C. Hilliard would use terms like that as well. Deep African thought.
So Sanjeti, let me ask you this.
Mhm.
Uh, f- Explain who Ankh Mira is and why he was pivotal in you learning the Medu Neter and why he's one of our great ancestors.
Okay. Thank you for that question.
Mhm.
So, uh, as far as my experience with him, it begins with a young, curious, just turned 19-year-old young man, um, going on, his own journey
Mhm.
after, years with my experiences with the Nawapian community. Once I turned 18, I realized I'm a man now.
Mhm.
And with the thought of, okay, if you're your own God, then, you go on your own journey, right?
Right.
So at that point, at 18, I was into, well, Egypt at that time. I was not aware of the word Kemet yet,
Okay.
Egypt with an I. And it wasn't until I came across a book in the Pearl of Africa on South Street in Philadelphia, my hometown. And the owner, who's also an ancestor, Brother Ahmed. So anyone who's from Philly, go back to the 90s, go
Mhm.
back to the early 2000s. All of us know the Pearl of Africa. It doesn't matter your background. If you was Hebrew Israelite, Nawapian, Kemetic, doesn't matter. Everyone knew the Pearl of Africa right on South Street. Shout out to the spirit of my brother, big brother, Brother Ahmed, who's an ancestor, who
Mhm.
ran that store. He opened up a lot of doors for me,
Mhm.
especially when I was out on my own. Okay, so I was in that store, and I saw this book. It was a black cover, and it had an image, a bust of a pharaoh, as I was calling it back then,
Mhm.
um, due to my limited knowledge. And I'm like, what is that? And it says, "Let the ancestors speak." Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, the cover attracted me. So I walked up and it said, "Removing the veil of mysticism from the Medu Neter." So I'm like, what is Medu Neter? So I'm kind of like feeling, okay, is that, hieroglyphs? Is that Egyptian? I'm like, huh. So
Right.
then I just happened to pick it up, open it, and again, it was lessons on, how to read, it was a grammar book. So I'm like, damn, this is kind of high. Okay. Hey, Ahmed, hey, how much is this? He said $20. Sold. Yeah, back then, $20. Today,
Listen, 20 million, 20 million.
yeah,
Okay.
a couple hundred. So, so I got that. So I went home, and in fact, I hadn't even started college yet. Okay, same year I started college. Um, I was 19 at this point. Went home. Listen, I could not take my eyes off of this. I
Mhm.
started, writing. I'm getting exposed to the word Kemet. I'm like, okay. And I might have heard it in passing, but in the Nawapian community at that time, it was rejected. Okay. So I'm
It
just
was rejected from within the Nuwapian community?
at that time, back in the 90s. Okay. I'm sure they changed at this point. We were saying Tamare at that point. Okay. Which it was
Okay.
really Tom Mary, All right.
Right.
So now getting into Ankh Mira. So I'm reading the book, I'm practicing. Now, this is the spring of 2000, practicing. I'm learning, but I didn't have anyone to guide me. I was just
Okay.
solo. And then I realized that, listen, I need guidance. I can't
Right.
do this individual thing
Not
anymore.
this. Right. Yeah.
Right. And at the same time, I'm reading for the first time I'm reading African-centered books consistently. The first one
Right.
was Journey of Songhai People by
Mhm.
the ancestor, my personal ancestor, Dr. Edward Robinson. So
So
that
you
family
knew
is
oh, so you're blood related to him?
no, not blood related, but
Mhm.
that's still my family. Like his grandson
Mhm.
is my best friend
Okay.
since
So
we were
did you know
12
him?
years old. Yes, I did.
Did you know AC Hilliard as well?
I didn't know him deeply. I did meet him. I have some pictures. I have pictures with him. It's Hilary, yes.
See, Sanjetti's
But
showing off right now, y'all. He just
that Robinson, to me, he was his grandpa. Back
right.
then when I was like
That's
12.
so
I didn't
dope.
know he was it took me like 2 or 3 years to realize how important he was.
Right.
Okay, so Alchemy Ra, I'm reading this book, I'm reading these other works, and I'm realizing that I need to be toolish because I'm becoming African centered at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I start college, Community College of Philadelphia, CCP, right there in Philly, and I immediately got involved with the African Student Union first week because I already knew at that point that I knew what I needed to do. So the elder, Hannibal Casanova, who took me under his wing, he's an elder, he's still with us. He saw something in me and he said, listen, I want to show you the ropes and I want to give you his position, the vice president. And he took me on his wing. I was meeting ASCAC elders. Shout out to the elder Ron McCoy, who's the vice president of the Mid-Atlantic region, who also took me under his wing as well. Okay, so we go on.
Just so I can understand, at this time, it seems like all the energy and direction is like, kind of putting you in the right place at the right time, it seems like.
Exactly. So Hannibal, the elder Hannibal, he said, Chris, see, at this point, I didn't get the name Sanjetti yet. I didn't go through my initiation. So he said, hey, there's a conference in Baltimore, Maryland, that you need to be at. So, we can go. So, he got the funds from the school and all we had to do was drive down there. So I drove, picked him up when we went down there. And then again, another door opener. I'm meeting all kind of people. I'm meeting.
This is for ASCAC?
No, this is just a conference. It wasn't an ASCAC conference. I don't recall who sponsored it, but I remember it was in Baltimore. I learned about naturopathic medicine for the first time at this conference.
Okay.
And like what that is, there was a sister named Nzinga something. She had a magazine called Natural Path. Okay, Natural Path, and I remember purchasing it from her and learning about naturopathic medicine, etc. And Hannibal came over to me and said, "Hey, I want you to meet somebody." And I'm like, "Okay." He says, "I want you to meet Ankh Ra," because that's all I was talking about with Hannibal. Like, I'm reading this book. Right here, right here. It's fall off the shelf. Right here, it's falling apart. I'm reading this book, Ankh Ra, and I had notes, and all that kind of stuff. I had like 3 notebooks, just notes. So I met Ankh Ra there, and I carried the book with me everywhere. Every time I went to school, I had this book with me and my notebooks, because that was a habit I picked up from being a Nawapian, always carrying books. Okay. So I met him. And I showed him my book, and I showed him my notes.
You showed Ankh Ra your copy of Let the Ancestor Speak.
Right. Yep.
And your notes on Let the Ancestor Speak to Ankh Ra. That's super dope.
Ankh Ra, to let him know, yo, I'm serious.
Like,
and I was doing this all year. This is the fall of 2000, and we had a sit down bill, and I remember him telling me how you have to take the mystical out of it. If you serious about studying such Medu Neter, you really want to comprehend it, then take the mysticism out. That can come later. In fact, don't look for it, because you're making conclusions before you go through the study. Okay.
And for everybody who's watching, we're gonna highlight that and put that off to the side for a second, because we're gonna stream a lot of ideas together. Okay, so take the mysticism out of it is something that you just hold on to that. We're gonna circle a lot of stuff back. Okay. Okay, continue. Go ahead.
Right. Now that seems for our collective community counterintuitive. Okay, it seems that way. But let me let's give you an analogy here. Let's take algebra. Algebra can seem mystical, to someone who doesn't know algebra. Mystical in the sense of I see it, but I don't comprehend it, and it seems like whoa, right? Or like calculus or trigonometry. But imagine someone who never took addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division, and then say, you know what? Okay, I might know some addition. Let's say, okay, let's give you that. Some addition, I might know some subtraction. Not really good with division, not no multiplication. And then go into an algebra class and say, okay, I see letters instead of numbers. I see plus and minus signs, but a minus 5a, what is that?
Right.
And start concluding things. But you never mastered addition, subtraction, multiplication, or even division. You got division and long division.
Right.
That's what it's like in our community. People, and again, this is general. This is not no one specific.
Right. This is general.
But the number is significant enough to derail us from the doors that are available to you.
Right.
So a lot of us want to skip those basic steps and jump straight to, I want to go straight to algebra because I don't want to do this right here.
Elementary level
skip
stuff.
over that. Right.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you this, the advantage of African tradition is that African tradition in general preserves all those basic steps of human psychological evolution that goes into symbolism.
Say that again. Say that one more time so people can remember that too.
Oh, you got to write it down. So African tradition in general, okay?
Right.
In general, preserves all of the evolutionary steps that become symbolism, that becomes what we perceive as magic, what we perceive as religion. All of the evolutionary steps is still on the continent, and you have advancements, but they preserve the oldest forms of language, etc. So my colleague and brother Wujao, Eri Ma'at, would say that human language, and I have to paraphrase, human language is the oldest witness of human history. Medu Neter preserves a lot of grammar forms. So grammar, which seems to be, I don't want to say Achilles' heel because then we're going back to the European ideology, seems to be this challenge, this thing that we don't want to touch, that we're afraid of because it takes work. See, grammar of a language, and I tell many of my students this, it's the psychology. It's the operative psychology of the language, because if you understand the operative psychology, then you can understand why symbolisms are like that.
So I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to break it down a little bit. My mom was an English teacher, and so I got a lot of grammar lessons in the house, whether I liked it or not. And I also took Latin for 4 years. Grammar is like the structure of language, just simply put, okay? And the function that you use in your language is what is needed from that particular culture, because language is the verbalization of culture. So if I need a yoga studio and a weight room and a sauna and a bedroom and a living room, and I'm building my own house, then I'm going to have a structure that facilitates what it is that I need. And what I feel like I need is the reflection of my culture. And so the grammar that you have in language is like the structure and the function that enables the culture to be verbalized in the form of language. That's what that means. So when you look at languages like Haitian, I call it Haitian Creole. The grammar structure is very African. And that's because you had African minds, and grammar is the function. So whatever European language was forced on top, like a spread over a sandwich, doesn't change the function that came out, that these African people came from. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of what he's saying when he's talking about the structure and the function of language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll give you just one example.
Uh-huh.
So let's say in English, adjectives, which are descriptor words, precede or come before nouns. Okay. So we know nouns are what? A name of person, place, thing, or an idea. Idea, i.e., an abstraction. So, but in Kemetic language, this African language, the adjective comes after, it follows the noun. So if I wanted to say red house, which word is red? Which one's the adjective? Red, between red and house. Which one's the adjective?
Red.
Red, exactly. Which one is the noun?
House.
House. So as far as word order, the English thinker will place the adjective as primary in the order. Now, if you're thinking in Kemetic terms with this African worldview, then the noun is primary because the noun is substance. Okay, come on with it. All right. The noun is substance. It's the substance that is the most significant, that is substantial. Okay. That is the foundation. And the descriptor, the adjective, conforms to the noun. The adjective takes on the character of the noun because the noun in that word order is the head. And the adjective is there to assist the head.
So since the noun is the primary, are you saying that the noun or the first word or wherever they're putting the primary emphasis is really kind of like the carrier of the culture in terms of, what people want to convey, like primarily?
Well, I wouldn't word it as carrier of the culture, like the noun per se, because all of it is the carrier of the culture.
Okay.
All right. But in this case, it's, let me see. Think about your body. So your body would be what? Would be the noun. The clothes that you put on, which kind of gives you more character, shapes to your body. Your clothes is your adjective, is giving you the accent, if you will.
Right.
It will always shape to your body. So the noun is the body. The adjective is the clothes that always conforms to the shape of the noun.
Right.
You follow me?
Yep.
So you see what we can do as far as discussion wise, conceptual wise, with just a noun and an adjective. How deep philosophical we can go just by discussing the grammatical structure within Sesh Medu Neter. It's because it's a whole system.
Now, one more thing. You've said Sesh Medu Neter. Can you explain what Sesh Medu Neter means as opposed to just Medu Neter?
Of course. So Sesh Medu Neter simply means the writing of Medu Neter. And in a more broader sense, the writing system of Medu Neter. Because that's what we're studying the writing system, which helps us with the speaking as well. So my colleague Wu Jiao, and then follow. So I'm gonna tell myself, follow in concord with that. Started to popularize. We didn't begin it. We're not the creators of it at all. We just popularized saying it that way. Sesh Medu Neter. So either way, you can say Medu Neter. You can say Sesh Medu Neter. Both are correct.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So how does this conversation that we're having right now, what does that have to do with the very specific title that we crafted out for tonight? The title that we settled out, not settled, but chose ritual, philosophy, and daily applications.
So, we had the conversation earlier today,
We did.
and I'd say, I'm really glad that you reached out, etc. Everything I lined up. So
Mhm.
as we were brainstorming over the phone, at first it was going to be uh what
Rituals, philosophy, and daily
ritual and
practices.
and and modern African practices,
Right,
right?
right,
And then I thought about it, and like, I don't want to use the word modern,
right,
because modern, even though that gives you the connotation of present day, it has this ideological cultural undercurrent of European ideology that has to do with imperialism.
right.
Okay.
How?
So in European ideology, in their philosophical discourse, when they refer to things as modern and they compare it with cultures older than them,
Older than them.
okay, older than their cultures, be it African, be it Asian, etc., they would turn themselves modern, like they're taking a timeline and making it linear, and they're at the end, the frontier, always moving forward of what's the most advanced. And all the cultures that come before them are obsolete. They're played out. They're no longer as useful. They're only useful for us to study, and maybe you get some type of pleasure out of conquering the cultures in that are antiquity. So
And
they
might
place
I
it
add,
on, right. They place it on this linear line. In fact, in order to really understand that, you want to get this work, Yorugu, an African-centered critique of European cultural thought and behavior by Maremba Ani. Okay.
mhm,
So this is what she says about modernity, modern modernity. To be useful, modernity, modern, has to be redefined so that, for instance, we can speak of modern African dress or modern African art using an African-centered frame of reference. Presently, the concept of modernity is much too Eurocentric to be either practical or of the or of theoretical value in a critique of European culture. We must begin with the assumption that Europeanness is not inevitable. And since we wish to describe a certain mode of cultural being as opposed to a certain level of history, European development is a product of European ideology.
facts. Mhm.
Okay. Consequently, it represents a particular view and approach to the world, as partial as any other. I'm going to stop there. That's on page 22. So for them, being modern represents ideology and technology for them. And that other cultures, if they don't adopt European ideology, they are not modern, even if they're present day.
And also the undercurrent is that the modern or the European method is more sophisticated. It's technologically better. It has an overarching um, assumption of superior, and that
Mhm.
all others, just as Sanjati has said, are obsolete and primitive and underdeveloped and inherently um, wrong at some level. Like, oh, nice try, but watch the masters do it. So the
Mhm.
word modern has those undercurrents, intertwined in the world, in the
A
word.
person,
Sorry.
a person who advocates or practices a departure from traditional styles or values. So if you just do a general search on
Mhm.
on the internet as a noun, so it's a break from tradition. What tradition? See?
Right,
So
right.
that's why. So under all of that is why I say I nix the word modern
Yeah,
and say
right.
present day or something like that.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And then we had practices. Why did we replace practices with application?
Because we could say practice, which is, repetition, which we do need that.
We
Okay.
do need that.
But then, then I was thinking, well, application, it carries more connotation to it,
Mm-hmm.
so you're applying things. So it is giving this idea of, you have the lessons and programs and things like that you're carrying forward and utilizing in a systematic way. When you
Right.
say application, it makes you think of methods, models, systems. So that's why I went with that. So it was a lot of thought behind that,
Yes.
in our dialogue and our exchange.
Yes, that we had earlier. Yeah, so I wanted to just, we decided that we were going to discuss that part of preparing for for the presentation that he's about to get into, so that you can understand that this is something that has to be applied, and that a language, like I've said often, is the verbalization of culture. And so with the preservation of the Medu Neter, the culture was preserved, and it wasn't just preserved to be read and to have Hollywood make movies with white actors. It was for the descendants of this great culture to read it, learn it, understand it from an African paradigm and perspective, and then apply it. So Sanjeti is going to jump into the presentation now. And that little dialogue that we had earlier just really kind of helps to set the structure and the framework for his presentation, and also how we can, re-examine our relationship with language, and also with the power in the Medu Neter. Because we're all speaking English. This is an oppressive language, and so because of that, we are inherently looking at the world at a certain level through a European lens, because we're using European language. Now, we all know how we do. We change it. We use it. We use slang. It grows. It morphs, and we put the blackness on it. But so we do make it our own. But I just wanted to kind of point out that language structure puts a structure on the culture. So let me know when you're ready to start sharing and you want me to share the screen.
Okay. And okay, so I have it up. Oh, hold on, let me go back. I need to put share, right? There you go.
Yeah.
Share screen.
Oh, so you have it.
Yeah. Share screen. Let me see. I need to go to Windows. There we go. I'm just getting used to this program here. Hold on, let me close that out. Let me pull this screen up. And just to speak about language, even though we speak English, we still can use it still like in African terms, which is, of course, is what we've always done.
Right.
Okay, so on the screens here, it's not showing up as options, so I probably just need to send it to you, correct?
There's a way for you to do it, but you can send it to me.
Okay.
But let's try for you to do it.
Okay, I'm pushing screen share. Go there. Share screen. Entire screen. Let's try this one. Let me try.
Oh, it's right here. There we go.
All right, now do you?
I can make this. Well, it's sharing your whole screen, so it's got. Yeah, there we go. You want me to make this like this, that format, or you want your face? Okay, that's cool. Okay, you got it.
All right. There's a button there I'm not going to touch. All right. So this presentation was originally done for the African Spirituality Conference that occurred at the community college, Essex County College, for the Africana Studies Department. headed by Dr. Akil Kalfani. This was 2018, 2019. Kemet and the Spiritual Unity of Africa. So I'm gonna go through this as smoothly as I can. All right, so here are the contents: African cosmology, Kemetic focus, sacred text and ritual, wisdom literature, and present-day significance. Okay, so we reference this work here, Urugu, an African-centered critique of European cultural thought and behavior by Maramba Ani, 1994. So in this work, we want to begin with the African foundation, and this will help us to segue into some African rituals and concepts that will be important for our discussion here. So the African Asili. So this word Asili is a word from Kiswahili, Bantu Kiswahili. It means soul, seed, the origin, core, the centering spirit of a thing. And the Asili, it has these outgrowths and expressions. The Utamawazo that you see on the left-hand side, Utamawazo is the culturally structured thought, the collective thinking pattern, the conceptual frameworks that develop from the Asili, from the core of a culture in order to maintain the Asili. And then you have the Utamaroho that grows out of the Asili. The Utamaroho is the behavioralisms, the emotional tone, the responsivenesses, the behaviors of the culture that maintain the culture, that support the culture, the Asili, the soul, the seed, the core. And they don't think of them necessarily as separate, but just simply outgrowths, continuous outgrowths. And this is the model that she discusses in this classical African work here, this monumental work. So taking her model, and I'm now applying it to Kemet. So you see the African Asili, which is the primordial origin, if you will. And each culture in Africa comes from this African Asili, the primordial origin. And each culture has its own expression of the African Asili, its own primordial origin based on the environment. You know, there are many environments in Africa. There's rainforests, there's Sahelian regions, there's desert, etc. Coastal areas, by the lakes, by rivers. So, and various modes of food production, be it agriculture, husbandry, dealing with cattle, etc. So if you're dealing with, they say, the Songhai people, and you have the Songhai culture, the Songhai culture comes out of the African Asili, and then it becomes specifically the Songhai Asili. The Akan tradition is the Akan Asili that comes from the African Asili, which is the primordial origin. So in this particular case, the Kemetic Asili is a spawn, a natural spawn from the African Asili, its own primordial origin. So the Kemetic Asili, in this case, for the Kemetic culture, this is the parent seed, and Tamawazo, the collective cognitive structure, Tamaroho, collective responsiveness and affective energy on the behavior of the culture. So she says this, Maramba Ani, in another work of hers, Let the Circle Be Unbroken. She says, to the African, the universe is made up of complementary pairs. Mm-hmm. The pairs are forces or principles of reality that are interdependent and necessary to each other in a unified system. The divine essence is not female and male and therefore able to reproduce itself. It should say both. My apologies. Is both female and male and therefore able to reproduce itself. It does so in the form of male and female twins that then pair in order to continue the process. The determining mode of the African worldview is harmony. The goal is that of discovering the point of harmonious interaction so that interfaces become neutralized, allowing constructive energy to flow and be received. In the African worldview, the human and the divine are not hopelessly separated. And this law is expressed in the Kemetic Utamowazo structure, culturally structured thought as Ma'at. And we know that Ma'at, when we go to other African traditions, it exists in other African traditions as well, even linguistically. This is a pitch to Brother Sar's linguistic work that he makes that full demonstration. Ma'at, law, order, correctness, straightness is what that means. So many times we will say, truth, justice, order, righteousness, etc. But it's correctness, straightness. In fact, the word ma'at comes from the word ma'ah. And again, I'm just using transliteration. I'm pronouncing it with transliterations. It comes from a verb that means to be straight. Truth, rightness. So here's some examples, very few. So ancient Egyptian, this comes out of Theophilo Benga's work. Ma'at, truth. Ma, true. Coptic, which is a Kemetic language. It is not the only. Me, me, my, me. Truth, justice, and also truthful, rightness. Kafino, in the Cushitic languages, Ethiopia, moyo, motive. Reason, truth and reason are inseparable. Congo, we know this is the central regions of Africa. Moyo, life, soul, mind, same semantic field. In fact, when we think of the term kimoyo. So instead of saying African religion or African tradition, why not take an African term to describe African tradition? Because both African and the word tradition are both English words as we're using them. So we say kimoyo. So if someone is practicing voodoo, you can say that's voodoo kimoyo. What type of tradition? We would say Kemetic kimoyo. You would say the Akon kimoyo. Yoruba kimoyo. If you say Sheshelekba, that is that form of kimoyo. So we want to say kimoyo instead of the phrase African tradition. We say kimoyo. Paps of Nesi Amsu. So one thing that is very important in any culture, any religion, etc., you want to look at the creation account, because the creation accounts gives you the collective psychology of a people. That's collective psychology that gives the worldview of those people, how they understand their own origin and their relationship to the world and other people. Classical text here, the Book of Knowing the Transformations of Ra and Overthrowing Apep, cataloged as the Bremner Rind Papyrus. Very important, because we have to do primary documentation coming out of Africa. No more, we don't need any more speculation. Go straight to the documents. And this papyrus here, the Shefedu, write it down, it's another term for you. It's a word meaning book. Shefedu, book. This Mijat is another word for book in the Kemetic language. It says, thus spoke Nebuchadnezzar, possessor of the uppermost boundary. He said, now this is the creator speaking, metaphorically, of course. I came into being as the existent, first to come into being. Having come into being as what exists, I then was. That was how existence came into being, for I was before the ancient netaru, my creation. Before they, I was. My name preceded theirs, for I created antiquity and the ancient gods, or ancient netaru. I made all that I desired in this world, and I spread over it. I reached out my hand to myself before they were born, before I spat out Shu and Tefnut. I created the modes of being. So let's go back. My name preceded theirs, for I created antiquity and the great gods, and I made all that I desired in this world, and I spread over it. I reached out my hand to myself before they were born, before I spat out Shuntef, and I created the modes of being. So this is the creator saying that before everything I was, and this is what I did. And when you read this in such Medu Neter, it actually reads like a rhyme, because the word Keper is used every time you see the word created, every time you see the word existence. It is Keper. Maybe one day we'll go over that. So this word here, Keper, as a verb, means to come into being, change, take effect, exist, to be. You see the Medu Neter there. Write that down. We have the scarab beetle, tall sign, 2 signs next to it. The anterior sign is the mouth, and beneath that is the papyrus scroll, functioning as the determinative. And we know the Keper beetle is a triliteral or triconsonantal sign. And then we have the monoliteral of the mouth, which is over the papyrus determinative sign. Then you have this. Keper Jeseph means he who came into being on his own, one of the names of Ra. So you have Keper, meaning being or come into being. And then you have the word Jes. And then you have the pronoun, masculine, third person, suffix, F, which is he. So his, like your own or self, that's the word Jes. So you put it together, he who came into being on his own or by himself. Because when you think about physics, astrophysics, chemistry, etc., all that plays, when you look at the universe and how stars and things are born and how they seem to be self-creating entities, if you will. This term, Keperu. Now, this is a noun. Form, configuration, ways of being, modes of existence. This is some of the vocabulary terms that's in the sacred texts. Kepri, existence, that which exists. So this is the name of the deity. So we know that we have this triliteral here, scarab beetle, with the mouth sign, monoliteral for the R phoneme. We have this, let's go here, sorry, papyrus scroll for the determinative. So we're talking about an idea. So every time you see the papyrus, we're talking about an abstraction, an idea. Here we have this tall sign, reed leaf, and then we have the hawk on a standard. Hawk on a standard, or a hawk on a perch, if you will. And this signifies that this is a divine concept, a nature, if you will. And therefore, the name Keper, every time you say it, the word means the existence, Kepri. So for us and many African people, conceptually, existence is God. Existence is God. It's in the language. You would not know that in that kind of detail unless you studied the language. Medu Neter, again, we don't need to speculate. We don't need to replace or try to take Greek and biblical concepts and try to lay them over Kemet in areas in which we had not studied. We have to study it. Take the mysticism out of it, Uncle Ra says, the great ancestor. Take the mysticism out of it, and then the doors will open to you. It sounds counterintuitive, yet it is the truth, because we're doing it in real time as you're looking at it now and those looking in the archive. The existence is God to us. Therefore, it is inconceivable to be an atheist in African tradition because you can't exist and then deny existence. It is an oxymoron of the highest degree. Moving on.
Facts.
All right. Here's the Shabaka stone. Had to do this to, try to bring myself down a little bit. You get a little excited. All right. So at the top, you see some transliterations. Translation is thus. It happened that the heart and the tongue, in fact, let's go back. The Shabaka stone is the creation account from another city. So what I want you to think about, I want you to take the analogy of, say, the Department of Biological Sciences. So in my background, I went to school for biology. So we have to take chemistry. We have to take biology. I had to take microbiology, cellular biology, genetics. Technically, the word biology means the study of life. So when you're studying chemistry, if we take it, if we add a little mystical to it, if you will, it is a way of describing the formation of life, if you will, via chemistry. When you study, let's say, microbiology, you're studying how microorganisms and bacteria and viruses are formed. So microbiology is another way of describing how life is formed. When you study genetics, you're studying how deoxyribonucleic acid, which is strands which has codes on it, how these codes interact to form, with messages, etc., to form life. So when you go into Kemet, and this is true in other places in Africa, the different cities have their own theology, if you will, of how they describe the universe and how it comes into being and your relationship to existence in their own way, but they always have a common undercurrent. So just like chemistry has a common undercurrent of understanding the formation of life as biology, a common undercurrent, but it has its differences. So when you look at read these different creation accounts, they're going to have the common undercurrent, but they're going to have their own differences. There's different ways of describing the same thing. So here we go. It happened that the heart and the tongue had power among all the members to teach. Let's stop there. It happened that the heart and the tongue had power among the members to teach. So members here is the body parts to teach. So you can take just that line and look out into the world and say, okay, all the different expressions of the creator, if you will, has the power to teach. I can learn from everything around me. I can look at a rock. I can learn from a rock. I can learn from animals and their behavior, what works and what doesn't work, because these are the members of the creator, if you will. He, Ptah, exists as a heart in every body and as a tongue in every mouth. Let's stop there. Hold up. So when other groups, let's say like the Nation of Islam, and even before that, even in the 1800s, Black men were talking about how, we are God, or God is within us, etc. Let me tell y'all something. Before the biblical text was even thought of, this text here, the Shabaka stone, which is a copy of an older text, which was on papyrus and it was being destroyed, is actually this history described at the top register of this stone. They had to put it on stone because it was originally written on papyrus, and this goes back to the old kingdom, if you will, the old period, the formative periods, the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth dynasties of ancient Kemet. This writing account wasn't in existence then. And it's saying that Ptah, the deity, exists as a heart and in everybody. Exists as a mind, because the word for heart there is ab or ib or ibi, and it means heart, mind. So it's like saying God exists as your mind. It's already here. And even though this is a copy, it still predates the other traditions that we are accustomed to. It was already there in everybody and as a tongue in every mouth of every nature of all humanity, of all animals, of all worms, and all things to think and to command everything he, Ptah, desires. This is saying that God exists in everything. I'm telling you, we do not need the Abrahamic traditions to recognize that God, that the creator is in us. We don't need to speculate. We have it written in stone and papyri all over Africa, West, Central, South. We have it all. It's already there. You have to study. It is there. There's no shortcuts. Uncle Ra told me you cannot shortcut the study of Medu Neter. You have to put the time in order for you to discover something like this. Take the mysticism out and you'll see. Doesn't say, we're not saying don't utilize symbolism, but it's all there. All right, these is emphasis. All right, so here's a book from the Book of Vindication. The coffin text, if you will, can be called the Book of Vindication. But the word vindication is a translation of the phrase ma'akaru, actually. So the coffin text can be called the Book of Ma'akaru, if you will. So all my Kemetic folk, write that down. The Book of Ma'akaru, put in parentheses, coffin text. I want y'all to start looking up the coffin text and acquire those texts. Those are your sacred texts. I know we read the Papyrus of Ani. That is one version coming out of the Pertham Heru. There's others. So this creation account, coffin text, 11 coffin text number 1130. The four great deeds of Ra says this: the words of the one hidden of names, Nebercher. So Nebercher again, from a different time period and city. He says, before those who calm the storm during the voyage of Ra's companions. He says, proclaiming peace. Let's stop right there. That word for peace is Hotep. This is a greeting or beginning of sayings, proclaiming peace, Hotep. So all those who denigrate this term, Hotep or Hotepi, keep in mind that Hotepi goes also refers to a basic African tradition of making offerings to your ancestors. It is also a word for the ritual of making offerings to your ancestors. It's the same as in Yoruba, ebo, sacrifice, offerings. In fact, the two words have the same linguistic root. We can get into that another time. Proclaiming peace. Again, I tell you, of the fine deeds my heart, my mind did for me from within the coiled serpent, so as to end what? Conflicts. Let's stop there. So the creator is speaking in such a way that we can model the creator. Again, this is metaphorical. Remember that the creation accounts hold the psychology of the people that's expressed in these accounts. Deeds, look at it, fine deeds. My heart and mind did from within the coiled serpent, so as to end conflicts. Use that as a model. End conflicts. I accomplished 4 great acts inside the portal of the horizon. Inside the portal of the horizon. I want you to visualize that. The horizon. He said, I created the 4 winds for all to breathe in their time. That was one deed. I created all people one like the other, commanding them not to do evil. Only their hearts had disobeyed my words. That was one deed. I inclined their hearts or their minds not to forget the West, so as to make sacrifices to the district netaru. That was one deed. I created the netaru from my sweat and humans from the tears of my eye. Now let's break this down, y'all. I created the 4 winds for all people to breathe in their time. What does that mean? this means that like equal resources for all people, that you are entitled to life, to breathe freely. I want y'all to like think deeply about that. I created all people, one like the other. Stop. This here comes out during the time that Egyptologists call the Middle Kingdom. So we're talking the 11th and 12th dynasties of ancient Kemet. I created all people one like the other. We're talking a human equality. Come on with it. Human equality is built into the tradition. It's built in the tradition. You don't have to make a separate philosophy over here. The creator, metaphorically speaking, told you I created all people one like the other. He didn't say you are God's chosen people or whatever. You are better than everybody else. Now other people can have that tradition, okay? And we can respect them. We don't have to denigrate them, but we have to understand our differences. Human equality is already built into the structure of the culture. I commanded them not to do evil. Only their hearts had disobeyed my words. Meaning this is your choice. To do evil is a choice. There's no, the devil made me do it. The creator said, only the hearts disobeyed my words. So there's no passing the blame off on the supreme evil made you do it. No, you did it yourself. There you have accountability built into the creation. I incline the hearts not to forget the West. Stop. The West represents the land of the ancestors and the land of the netaru, if you will. The West is where your ancestors dwell. So the creator sanctions what they call ancestor worship. Come on with it.
Come with it.
Okay. This comes from a primary text that still exists. We can look it up. So as to make sacrifices to the district netaru, there is no creator says, thou shalt have no gods before me. No, our expression of God or deity says, no, there's these other deities that you need to give respect to. Come on with it. Okay. I created the netaru from my sweat and humans from the tears of my eye. This is the concept of consubstantiality, which is a concept that says that we are made up of the same substance as the creator. Now we can go to astrophysics and chemistry, etc., and that ultimately stars, the formation of stars, is what creates the elements, if you will. All the elements in your body, way down the line, is what forms our bodies. Is it forms everything we see in the observable universe. Okay. Technically, we come from stars. So if you say, my ancestors are stars, technically you're correct. Okay. But we don't want people to jump and say, well, I come from the stars and not have an understanding of how that is. You need to study astrophysics and chemistry to have like a full grasp of it. We got to put in the work. This comes from the onomasticon of Amen Moped, British Museum catalog EA 10474. And this is important. Now, what you see here, these are pictures of the actual documents. Pictures of actual documents. And what you see is this looks more like hieratic, very close to demotic in late period, but this looks more like hieratic, if you will. The better you get at Medu Neter, such Medu Neter, the better you'll get at recognizing some of these differences. And this is read from right to left. Again, there is no Arabic at this point in history, nor is there Hebrew at this point in history. Okay. The beginning of the teaching for clearing the mind, for instruction of the ignorant, and for learning all that exists. What Ptah created, what Yehudi copied, heaven with its designs, earth and what is in it. What the mountains belch forth, what is watered by the flood, all things upon which Ra illuminates, all that is grown on the back of the earth, excavated by the scribe of the sacred books in the house of life, or the Per'ankh, Amenemopet, son of Amenemopet. He said, okay. So he's saying, he's categorizing the world. This is their worldview. Many of us never even heard of this text. But you wouldn't if you didn't study Egyptology. So we have this thing in our community where we demonize Egyptology. Or we'll say the white man wrote it. But guess what, to my Kemetic folk? A lot of the information that you may not even know the question to ask, you would not know it because you don't want to look at Egyptology, where a lot of information is in Egyptology. How often are you hearing discussions of this text here? I've never heard this. Not in the Kemetic community, not when I came up. I'm quite sure somebody may have, I don't know. But anyway, so this document, it categorizes the universe. Sky, sun, moon, star, Sahu, which is, they translate as Orion. The four-leg that the Greeks and Europeans call the Great Bear Constellation. We call it the four-leg. And what I decided to do is jump a little bit to save space. Darkness, sun, light, 22, primeval waters, 55, highland, 62, riparian land, which simply is land with water flowing through it, and in which lush greens and vegetables and plants and trees grow as a result of the river flowing through it. We learn that in the study of habitats around the world. A good translation for the land of Kemet, because that's what Kemet is. It's a land with water flowing through it. So many times in past few years, you have people who will say, oh, don't translate Kemet as riparian land. That's stupid, da, 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 da. So my comment would be, so you mean to tell me it's stupid to visualize Kemet as a land with water flowing through it? Okay, it gets silly. All right, let's move on. The next category is that they call God's persons, court, offices, occupations. 63, God, nature. 64, goddess, Neteret. 65, man, spirit, ancestor. I'm translating that as man, spirit, ancestor. Right. They'll say male spirit or spirit and then male. And I'm translating man, spirit, ancestor, because for us, these spirits are ancestors. Ak, a woman or female spirit ancestress. Akhet. King, Nesu. And then I just made this word up, kingess, if you will, Nasit, because a woman could be a king in African culture, various African cultures. Okay, so I just highlighted words. You can see this here. Let's go. Now, right here, I have this highlighted. This is what I want you to notice. The order of importance of the universe. Notice that God is not first, if you will. What is first is up here. These are terms that have to do with the natural world.
Right.
This tells you that African people perceive this as primary. And then you get into these conceptual forms. So this name nature comes after the words for nature, not before. And that ancestor, Dr. Yosef ben Yakana, what did he always say? For every god, there's a goddess, and for every goddess, there's a god in Africa, right? Many of you have heard him say that. You either heard him say it personally or you heard it on tape. Now, this here confirms what he said. Notice the complementarity. Go back to what that great scholar, Marimba Ani, said. That complementarity in the world, twin souls, is confirmed here. So Neteret. And then in order of hierarchy, again, this is after nature. Then it becomes God, goddess, okay? Then you have Ak and Akhet. They're together. You have male spirits and female spirits. A man could be a king, a woman could be a king. We don't need to speculate. The documents are there. It is right here.
Sanjay, I have a question before we go on to sacred texts and rituals.
Mm-hmm.
It's now this was a question from the chat. It is being
Mm-hmm.
said now that the Igbo people are ancestors of the Kemites. Is to your knowledge and understanding, is that true?
No. So if we take after the model of Shekin to Job, Shekin to Diop, which I'm heavily influenced, and that is the scholastic foundation for which I operate, as well as many others. That Kemet, the culture of Kemet, the culture of the Igbo culture, the Yoruba culture, the Fon culture, the cultures in the Congo, they have the same origin, the same, which you might say, genetic parent. It's not that Kemet, because you have some people will say, well, Kemet is the origin of civilization. Okay, not exactly. Because a lot of times, because we're into something, we try to make that the origin by default, because we say that's the highest. So therefore, it's really ego trip. So we don't need to say that Kemet is the origin of civilization, because it's not. But it doesn't make Kemet any less valuable. Just like with Igbo culture. Igbo culture is not the origin of Kemet. It doesn't negate or diminish the importance of Igbo culture and the agency of Igbo culture, which it does have. The Igbo culture and Kemet, they have the same origin. They have the same asili. They come from the same cultural matrix. And the word matrix is the word meaning mother. So the cultural mother, the origin. Or as our Dogon ancestors and brothers and sisters would say, coming out of Amma, a cosmic egg, if you will. We come from the same seed. Not one gives birth to the other. So, no. Let's keep moving. Did you have anything else on that?
No, it was just that one question. That's the only question that I've seen in the chat, guys. So if I missed it, if you asked a question, I missed it. You can type it, again, and I'll see it easier now. Go ahead, Sanjay.
All right. Sacred text and ritual. Ideas from text. Now, we went through all of that to lead up to text and ritual. Because when you do rituals, ritual is a way of preserving memory, of preserving ideas, preserving certain points in history throughout the life of the culture. So we could look at this pyramid of Unas, or Wanasa. I'm proposing Wanasa as the pronunciation. So it's Unas Nefer Isut, the perfect abode of Unas, or Wanasa. Here's the image, left and right, images. And this is the earliest of the pyramid texts right here.
Sanjay?
Yes.
Sanjay, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Talk to me. Or are you just doing a mic check?
No, it just said that the internet connection stopped on my end. Did it stop on your end?
No.
It didn't?
Mm-mm.
Okay, good. I just want y'all to know who've been hanging with me. I'm about to get my internet power bumped up on Thursday. So by next Tuesday, we should be flying. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Okay. So this is inside the corridors and walls and ceilings of the pyramid of Unas, or Wanasa, that we've seen in the previous slide. This is the inside. So you see the writing on the wall, if you will. So the statement, you can see the writing on the wall. Here you have it. Right there. And then the left image, you see on the ceiling, you have stars. So they're imagining themselves inside of the universe. And these texts are as a guide for Nasut Wanasa, or the King Unas's spirit. Again, we know this is symbolic, but it's a way of preserving the ideas of culture and what we value. At the top, you see this is an image from the pyramid of Unas. And we know it comes from him because we can read the text, because his name is here in the Shinu. We don't say cartouche, because that's a French word meaning bullet, and these are not bullets. Okay, so that we can dispense with the word cartouche. You only use it if you're typing on the internet looking for words. Other than that, serves no other purpose than for you looking in books, etc. Which is still important, but so unas is here. You have the hair, the water sign, you have the reed leaf, and then the folded cloth inside of the shinu. That's how we know, because we can read the text. Wanas, wanasa, or unas. Libation. This section is about libation. 19 says, O Sar, acquire for yourself all those who hate unas, and any who speaks bad of his name. Now, we already know we don't like people talking trash about us. Okay, so this is pretty much the same thing. It's just more ritualistic. Jehuti, go acquire for him a Sar. Go acquire for him a Sar. Get the one who speaks bad of Unas's name. Put him in your hand. In other words, go check him. You recite this. You recite 4 times. Don't you let him loose. Don't you let loose of him. Beware that you not let loose of him. Libation. So you do this 4 times. Because your name means a lot. And when people speak badly or slander your name, then that's pretty serious. Mind you, this is the fifth and sixth dynasties of ancient Kemet at this point. Sensing. Now, what is sensing, y'all? So when you're burning incense, the act of doing that is sensing. So this is why you're burning incense, be it on a stick or a cone. Back then, it was more like rocks, if you will. Some of us still do. So you take charcoal and put incense rocks like frankincense, myrrh, etc., on top of the charcoal. They did that back then in Kemet. It says this, number 20. So it has gone with his ka. Ka is another, we translate it as spirit, if you will. Heru has gone with his ka. Sut has gone with his ka. That's like saying Set, if you will, or Satesh has gone with his ka. Jehuti has gone with his ka. And the Neter has gone with his ka. Sar has gone with his ka. So you say that while you're burning the incense. This section here is preparation for the morning meal upon the offering table. So eating is a ritual as well. And we know that because even today we offer food to, let's say, the Orisha, when we give Ebo in West Africa, and of course in the diaspora, those who practice Sheshe-Legba. Okay, you do it in Vodun tradition. We do it in the Akon tradition. We do it in ancient Kemet. It's in South Africa. 55, it is Jehuti he brings himself with it. He has come forth with Heru's eye and offering table. So these are some of the steps, if you will. These are actually the sections of rituals that you find in the pyramid text. So this is just a general outline. Libation, sensing, cleansing the mouth with salt water, libation and cleansing, preparation of the offering table. We just read one of the verses for that. Cleansing the mouth, bread and onions, or offering of bread and onions. Then there's offering of beef and poultry. Then there's offering of bread, offering of drinks, fruits, vegetables, dedication of the offerings, and then invocation of the offering ritual. Stop there. So this sheds light on some misconceptions that we may have. Now, granted, we want to have good hygiene. We want to have good health. However, in ancient Kemet, there's no evidence that as a culture they practice vegetarianism. It doesn't mean don't be a vegetarian or a vegan. I'm not saying that. It's just that we don't need to superimpose ideas we get from India or our modern ideas. Modern is, in the sense of present day ideas, and put it on an ancient culture without reading the texts. We need to be educated on this. So libation, we already know that because we do that at the beginning of our rituals. Even today, even in West Africa, they begin with libation. This goes back to ancient Kemet. And we say Kemet, we're not saying Kemet is the origin of this. We're talking about a time period. The importance of Kemet, it demonstrates how long we've been doing it. That's why Kemet is important. When people ask, well, why y'all study Kemet? because Kemet demonstrates the antiquity of African tradition. Because since this predates Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, and European imperialism and Arab imperialism, since it predates it, that means it has no influence from them. And then we take what's common between ancient Kemet and present-day African traditions, which some have influences from these imperial, Western, Asian, and European imperialism. Islam, Christianity, Judaism has some influence there. We can differentiate by finding the commonality in ancient Kemet, and then that's what's more characteristically, if you may say, African. Without that, let's keep going.
So, Sanjay, I gotta ask a couple of questions that I'm getting. So, so the questions are with. So I'm going to say this, but then I know that they want you to answer from the text. The civilization in Kemet was like the flower. It bloomed, it blossomed in Kemet. You can't just wake up one day and be human, and then on Tuesday you have one of the greatest civilizations that the world has ever seen. There were people who were older than the Kemites. They state that in their records. They said themselves that their ancestors came from the south. Okay, and so sometimes people confuse, this is kind of what Sanjay was saying, the flowering of which happened in Kemet as opposed to the beginning of like humanity. Those two things cannot happen at the same time. You can't like flourish and blossom and also at the same time be born. As much as Sanjay knows today, he didn't notice when he was, 4 hours old. Because you can't be born and flourish kind of at the same time. So can you answer this question? Wait, what does it mean? One question is, which people are older than the Kemites? And yeah, who are the ancestors of the Kemites? Kemet. That's one question. Another question is, what does sacred mean in Kemet? And I would imagine in Kemetic culture or in the Medu Neter. So if you could answer those two questions, then the third one is the offering table the same as an altar or as the altar? So just do the first two questions first, and then I have two other questions that are relevant and pertinent to this. Who are the ancestors of the Kemites, and what does sacred mean in Medu Neter and in Kemet?
Okay, so if you want to look at ancestors of Kemet, you want to go into like the central regions of Africa, in and around Congo. Okay. Because now I don't have a name per se, like this specific people, but more so like groups of people. We know this because if we go to the language, there's a lot of words in Bantu. So you want to go to Bantu speakers in their traditions. They preserve a lot of the words or sounds for the same words in Kemet that are older than Kemet. For example, let's take a Bantu term, katapa. Katapa is a word that means sacrifice in Bantu. A K is older than the H sound, if you will. Hotep is a word that means sacrifice offering. The same word is in Bantu as katapa. The K gets weakened and becomes an H. So when you start getting into Kemet, it has a sound that comes from a K sound. This is one of our indicators when we go into what Shekinah Juk calls the linguistic factor. We can go to a non-Bantu language per se, the Kalenjin language of the Kalenjin people in Kenya, and they also exist up and down the Nile River or Hapi, and in the surrounding areas. They have the word Hotep in their language. They're all the way in Kenya, but they pronounce it Katepi. So you have two different language groups they have this word Hotep in their language that they still use now, but they have the older sound. So the origins of Kemet, we don't need to speculate. Go in the central regions of Africa.
Right.
Is right there. All right. So I hope that gives us some direction, on ancestors of Kemetic people. They're right there in Africa, right in the central regions. And again, we don't need to go outside of Africa. We don't need to go to India. We don't need to go to the Asian origin of Kemet, because Sheikh of the Joke already destroyed that whole argument.
Period. We don't need to leave the source to go get somebody else's rendition, is what he's saying. We got it here. It's written down. So this is what we're doing.
So you need to go to the African origin of civilization. When you read chapters 3, 4, and 5, he breaks it down in there masterfully. Okay.
And also, I want to say this because we have a lot of questions. Sanjeti teaches, so it sounds like some of y'all might need to rewatch this, which some of you are saying, and also just take a class from him, because that'll give you your one-on-one like intensive. Okay, go ahead, Sanjeti. Were you going to answer the other question or kind of move on?
Yeah. So word for sacred in Kemetic, again, I'm using transliteration, Jesser, which is word for sacred. And it comes from a word that means to set aside, meaning you set it aside because it is valuable and you don't want it to be tampered with, etc. So Jesser is where it means to set aside. That's the context. So things that are sacred is what you set aside for sacred time, for sacred practice, if you will. Anything that's sacred from you, you set it aside from secular, which might call secular things. So hopefully that answers the question.
The other question is this offering table the same as the altar?
Okay, so an altar can have offerings upon it. So altar is where you would place, images, pictures, physical symbols, tools that are sacred, if you will, upon a platform, which could be a mat, if you will. It could be a mat, or it could be made out of stone. It could be made out of wood. You could raise it a little higher, like a table. In that case, it could be called a kaut. That's a word for offering table, kaut. So Hotep can also be an offering mat or offering table. It is the act of offering. Hotep is the act of offering or making a sacrifice. Hotep is the offering and sacrifice itself as well. So it has these functions. So food can be Hotep. The act and ritual of you doing so is Hotep. The object or platform for which you put the offerings upon is Hotep.
Right.
And the ritual itself, Hotep. Hopefully that answers the question.
I hope so too. I have another question. Is there any language where the Kemetic language is spoken or close to the Kemetic language, like today?
Absolutely. So in Egyptology, the default answer is Coptic. Default answer is Coptic. You can get a lot from Coptic. The studying of Coptic helped us in very significant ways on our pronunciations. In fact, the word Hotep, the reason why there's an O there is from the study of Coptic. Okay. However, Coptic is not the only language that's related to Kemetic that's significant enough for us to utilize in the front. So you don't necessarily. So when you become educated enough in these other African languages, you don't have to use Coptic as your default. However, it is still significant. Okay, so I don't want anyone to misinterpret what I'm saying. Okay, that let's not use Coptic. But I don't want people who haven't done the study to start doing that. Okay. However, let's take the Killinger language, or Killinger languages, if you will. According to Dr. Kipchwitz Samba, who's out of Kenya, he's a native speaker. He's also Egyptologist and a linguist. He wrote 2 important works in English. He demonstrates that Killinger language is related to Kemetic. Like there's words, he has an entire word list that put Kemetic words and Coptic and Killinger together to the point where you're like, man, I might as well use Killinger to help me pronounce Kemetic words.
Wow.
Remember, this is all in Kenya. But according to traditional, the European Academy of Linguistics, Killinger, which is a Nilo-Saharan language, is not related to Afro-Asiatic. Of course, that's a whole another conversation that we don't have time to get into. Basically, is not even related whatsoever. But the data demonstrates otherwise.
So one last question for now. Someone states in the 42 laws, it says to do no harm to animals. Wouldn't that mean be a vegan? I'm going to jump in and say something really quickly there. There are lots of translations of the 42 laws. So it would depend on, which one you got. But can you answer that question?
Yes. So, all right. So there's a context behind that. If you kill an animal, you do it to eat the animal.
Right.
You don't just do it just to be doing it. Just say, hey, I killed this lion.
You don't kill an animal to put the head on the wall and take a picture. You don't do that.
And you don't eat the meat. Now, granted, in African cultures, they do take what we might call souvenirs, if you will, that you defeated. But what do you eat the meat?
You eat it.
Right. You don't just do it and then that's it and then leave it there, because that's not the order of that brings balance, if you will. It's not the order that brings balance. So, because I don't want to say that's not natural, because everything that happens in nature is natural. So I don't, we put our foot in our mouth when it comes to like some logic there. We don't need to get into that right now. But so if you kill an animal, you have to eat the meat and use it to feed. So a life taken has to be used to give life.
Right.
So, so if you come across someone who says, do not harm animals, I don't recall that per se.
Yeah, me neither. I think that's a misinterpretation or an over generalization of a translation. What I read is not to harm the cattle divine, which Sanjeti discussed the last time he was here, meat or food that is, set aside for sacred rituals.
Right. Right. So when you go to, in fact, it's one of the not later, but in the numerical order, if you will,
right.
It's like towards the end that you shall not kill sacred animals set aside for the neter.
Right.
So it's talking about taboos. Like there's certain animals you don't kill for meat. Okay. In a certain town, the district. So whoever, not the person who asked the question, but say someone is pushing that, took half the whole translation out.
Right. And then also really quickly, and then when we give the mic back to Sanjeti, there were 42 different nomes with like a main deity, and I don't like to use that word, but like a main netaru that was a part of, that was in that particular town, if you will. And he talked about this earlier. So they had their interpretation, or it was a different town and their own, I don't want to say culture, that's too big of a word, but rules, if you will. Okay. So everything wasn't like this one ideology, way to do everything, custom, etc. It wasn't quite frankly that boring and flat, if that makes any sense. Okay. So I just want to say this last thing about the meat and the food. In today's and I'm going to say modern times because it's modern in terms of this is how the European has constructed it. Anything that you put in your mouth to eat, you should know the origin, period. Whether it's meat, fruits, vegetables, whatever, because it's just an industry of torture and filth, not the animal in and of itself, because human beings have been eating meat since forever. So the situation we're in today in our modern times with this meat industrial complex is not the same as how animals were real animals. There were no hormones. They were not tortured and all of those things. Okay, so the vegan movement, part of that in our more recent time is really an escape from that type of an animal and the situations around that. Okay. All right. So I can answer more questions afterwards. Sanjeti, go ahead. If you could please continue with where you were.
All right. Do I. So look at the order here. Cleansing the mouth with salt water. So the salt water is what it has, what we call natron, which is a sodium super compound. And one of the mixtures that's a part of this super compound, sodium super compound, is baking soda, if you will. Sodium bicarbonate is a part of the super compound that constitutes natron, which is a natural sodium super compound that's found in Kemet. In fact, there's even a place called Natron Valley where they acquired this. And we know that we can use natron and or baking soda for many cleaning purposes and applications. And we somewhat spoke about that before. So you use it to brush your teeth, you use it to clean the counter, you can clean the bathroom with it, you can wash your clothes in it, especially if you have all whites and you don't want to, use like harsh bleach, if you will, which, watch this, y'all, bleach is a sodium compound. Come on with it, y'all. Come on with it. Bleach. Look up the chemical name of bleach. It is a sodium compound. All right. So, and this is the importance of understanding things like chemistry. You don't have to be a master of it. You need to know some basics, what these things are, because we use these things in our daily lives. And what are the commonalities and what makes it, a purifying agent, if you will. So, cleansing the mouth with salt water. So, this is their version of like Listerine, if you will. Okay, libation and cleansing. Now, mind you, we're doing this before you're eating. Before you eat, preparation of the offering table. So you prepare it. So watch this. Before you make your table, before you're cooking and things like that, you should be cleaned. Cleaned. And how many times are you cleaning before you even eat? Watch this. Look. Cleansing the mouth with salt water. You jump down 1, 2, 3 steps. Cleansing the mouth again. And then you can eat bread and onions. Bread and onions, beef and poultry. Bread, drinks, fruits, vegetables. Guess what this is, y'all? This is a Kemetic diet. So if you're Kemetic, now personally, I don't eat beef, but because I don't eat beef, I'm not then going, that's not logical for me to tell you not to eat beef and say, hey, you're Kemetic, why are you eating beef? Where the evidence demonstrates otherwise. So beef is a part of Kemetic diet. Poultry, particularly birds and duck, was what they had at Kemet. You look on the walls, that they show it to you. They show you what they eat. So if you eat chicken, it doesn't make you an impure person. Well, just chicken in itself. Beef might recommend grass-fed cows. Okay. Now, I'm not saying go to McDonald's and get beef patties or Burger King. I'm not saying that. Okay, so I don't want anybody misinterpret it. Say Sanjeti said, hey, it's okay to eat, McDonald's burgers now. Okay. Because we know how that stuff is manufactured. Bread, drinks. When they say drinks, these are wines and beers.
Right.
Okay. and they have so many different varieties of wines and beers that they can't even translate specifically. Which, you know, if you go into you know, the wine store or whatever, you got different types of wines. You got red wine, white wine, Cristal. You got all this stuff. Okay, they had all, you know, they had things like that in Kemet. Fruits, vegetables. You should be eating fruits and vegetables. We already know that because we have dietary influences from people such as, say, Queen Afua, Baba Haru, and many others that really push us to have healthy diets. So you don't have to eat beef. You know, you don't have to, but don't scold someone who does. But what you do not, and I'm gonna say do not with a capital T at the end, see is pork.
You do not see that.
Never will you see the pig as a general offering. The only place, now again, we have to be objective, that the only place that I'm aware of where pig was sacrificed was in one city in northern Kemet, okay, in a place that is called Mendes, okay, and that's recorded by it's either Herodotus or Dietary. And again, don't reject it because they're Greek, okay? They use logic. They're simply recording what they're observing. There's no racist objective at this point in history, okay? They're just recording what they're observing. Because remember, Kemet is an entire country. There's different taboos all over the place.
Right.
But I'm telling you, the vast majority, like 99.9%, and I'm pretty much going on a limb here to say it, you will not see pork. And it is a taboo in the majority of the country, with the exception of this one place that I'm aware of. Okay? So again, as a scholar, we have to practice scholastic honesty. And it would be dishonest if I withheld that information. But I'm also not saying, hey, go ahead and go eat pork. I'm not saying that at all. I'm going to be biased and say, no, don't eat pork.
I'm going to be biased and say don't eat it either,
Right.
because a lot of us coming from West Africa, and as descendants of those enslaved Africans, we're eating the slop that the slave owner gave us. Don't do it, fam. Don't do it.
So we're good on the pork.
Yeah, we good.
Don't copy this one group of people. And they only did it once a year, by the way. So, all right, let's keep moving.
Yeah.
Dedication of the offerings and invocation of the offerings. All right, let's move on. All right, Pertim Haru. Some of you have seen this before. This is, I like to call this the Duara chapter. This is sheet number 1. And if you notice, this is Ani and his wife Tutu. Ani and his wife Tutu. So when we speak about the paps of Ani, brothers and sisters, make sure you mention her as well. Her name is Tutu. Okay, Ani and Tutu. He was a scribe of the world offerings. And it's very important that we know that. Okay, notice these offerings. This is a Kaut table. Kaut. Look at this little tree here. Look at these plants. Look, the offerings, this is what they're eating. They show you. There's no speculation here. There's bread. There's beef right here. Again, I don't eat beef, but because I'm not going to withhold this information.
Right.
Okay. So in other places, you'll see birds, ducks. So it's all there. Here's your Kemetic diet. Right there. Shrubs. All right. You see him in the dua position? Paying homage. See what she's holding? Plants. You know, this is we have she has the wax cone upon her head. We have other African people in Ethiopia who still do this. We don't need to speculate. Papyrus, lotus flowers. Anyone who's actually grown a papyrus plant, knows how long these stems get. This had nothing to do with her being a white woman, none of that kind of stuff. So you can stop that. This here, it represents the red ochre. This is the yellow ochre. Bantu people in Central and South Africa still do this now. Okay, no speculation needed.
That's right. Say it louder for the people
Okay.
in the back.
All right, Bantu is yellow. They paint their bodies with yellow ochre. The women do today, and the men paint themselves with red ochre today. No speculation needed. Keep it moving. Over
Period.
here, you see offset. We know that because of the headpiece. No speculation needed. We have Nebet Het. Again, these are Medu Neter symbols. No speculation needed. They're paying homage to what? Ra, who's being raised up or held up with the life and the foundation, the jet pillar.
That's right.
Okay. By the way, take the mysticism out of it. Jet pillar is not a battery. It never was. Okay. They're pillars. If you ever go into a museum or you ever been to Kemet, you see the pillars that hold up the temple, and it looks like this. So you see 4 of them. These are 4 different pillars. 4 pillars juxtaposed one upon the other. Not juxtaposed, excuse me. One over top of the other. Yeah. Okay. That's why it's 4 for the 4 corners of the temple. Okay. Not a battery. Throw that idea out. It's okay. We don't need that because it doesn't answer any questions about the culture. No evidence whatsoever. Let me say this about evidence, because we got this thing in our community where we like to make scholastic study the enemy of spirituality.
Hold on for 1 second. I'm sorry. Can people hear? Oh, the audio is back. All right. So, okay. If you can hear, please put in the chat that yes, you can hear. I'm sorry. We said no audio, then audio is back. All right. Go ahead, Sanjati.
Okay. So we have this thing in our community. Again, not everybody, only where it applies. That scholastic study is the enemy of spirituality. We have to stop that. Mm-hmm. This is a bad habit that we get from Catholic Church. Okay. And I'm just being honest with you.
Straight like that.
Okay.
Straight up.
Because you have fanatical Christians
right
out of Europe who did not engage in critical thinking. And we're going back to the European Middle Ages for them.
Right.
Where they felt threatened by objective knowledge. And anyone who had objective and scientific information, they called them a warlock and a witch, and they burned them at the stake. Okay. Right. So we need to stop repeating their behavior. Do scholastic study because your ancestors created scholastic study. Your ancestors created scholarship. So yes. let's stop all of that. Okay. All right. So again, no battery. It's okay. The jet pill is not a battery. Okay. These are simply symbols that convey ideas. And you notice that these 2 are upon the symbol called Nebu or Noob, which is the sign for gold. Okay. And it's upon this foundation inside of a symbolic canopy. And here we have the baboons on raised earth, paying homage to Ra. Perhaps Ani sheet number 1. And we know this is Dua Ra chapter because it begins here. It says Dua Ra Shefet Uben FM Akit Yabi Yunet Pet right here. Adoration to Ra, who rises in the eastern horizon of the sky.
The cursor is in the last column right before the right. Box scene. Yeah. So here, let me make it bigger. Maybe that'll help. So Sanjeti is reading the Medu Neter off of this here.
Right here.
Okay. Yeah.
You see that the stick figure man? That's Dua. We all recognize that. Okay. And that star there, triliteral Dua. And then you have Ra here. So that's the mouth sign, arm, determinative of the sun, vertical stroke with the Neter. If I remember correctly, this is a 40 in the Garda code. And this is read from right to left. Okay. Shefet, when, Uben, or Webena, meaning rising. So when rises he, this is the third person masculine suffix, or suffix third person masculine, the horned viper. Then you have M. So according to Yopareka Some, this is ribs of a gazelle, accordingly. And then you have Akit here. Akit, horizon, Yabitet. So this is Eastern. So remember, we talked about the noun and adjective. So Eastern is the adjective. Here's the noun. So Akit Yabit, Eastern horizon. Okay, a horizon Eastern. And then we have Pet here. So you have net, which is the preposition, feminine concord, because it has to agree with the Yabet. And the Akit. Akit is the primary, that's your noun, and that dictates the gender of Yabit, the word for east, Eastern. And then we have net, and then we have pet. So pet is also feminine concord. So that's why the net is there instead of just in. All right, just a little grammar. By the Asar, the scribe of the divine offerings of the netaru, or of all the netaru nebu, ani, right there. There's your title right there. How do we know that? Because we can read the text and we educate ourselves. You can do it too. And then it goes on, say, Jed F, he says, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not going to go through this whole thing, but this is why I call it the Duara chapter, because of this. It's using simple logic. Okay, let's move on. So now we go to sheet 32. This is chapter 42. Chapter 42, watch this. It says this: my hair is Nun. My face is Ra. My eyes are Het Heru. My ears are Wepawat. My nose is she who presides over her lotus leaf. My lips are Ampu. My molars, which are your teeth, are Sarket. My incisors, which are teeth as well, which are more on the front and sides, are all set. My arms are the ram, Nabajedu. My breast is neat, lady of Saul. My back is Set, or Satesh. My phallus is Asar. My muscles are Nebokaraha. My chest is he who is greatly majestic. My belly and my spine are Sekhmet. My buttocks are the Eye Heru. My thighs and my calves are Nut. My feet are Ptah. My fingers are Sahu. Toes are living serpents. There is no body part of mine devoid of a nature, and Jehudi is the protection of my flesh. Listen, y'all, the perception here is that your body is divine. You are not born in sin. There's nothing in there that says you're born in sin. You are born divine, and every body part of you is endowed with divine presence, if you will. So reading something like this, what would that do to your self-concept, your self-esteem? If you perceive your body, your spirit, as important with agency, because the opposite creates things like social isolation, depression, manic depression, etc. When you look at yourself as I'm born in sin, it creates depression. So in the European construct, it breeds depression and breeds suicidal behavior. This we learn in sociology. Here, there's nothing about this that breeds the self-loathing concept of yourself. So I'm going to let you kind of marinate on that. Is the volume still there?
Yeah, the volume's still here. I'm just on mute, so you won't hear me typing.
All right. So.
Oh no, the comments are lit. They hear you.
Okay. All right. Good. Dua. So this is the Papyrus of Ani. Remember, if you go back to the Shabaka stone, it echoes the same idea. Remember earlier we were saying that you have this common thread, that this undercurrent throughout Kemetic history in these different places that shares it with other places in Africa as well. And you take these things and you put it into ritual. The Papsa'ani, or the Pertem Heru, in which the Papsa'ani is not the only version. You have the Paps of Nebseni, you have the Paps of Horu, you have the Paps of Naket, you have the Paps of Nu. We can go on. That I encourage all of you, especially those who are of the Kemetic persuasion, you need to look these things up. Okay. Let's keep going. Okay. The Runu Pertem Heru, the book of going forth by day into the light or into the day. So this is the image here that shows the judgment scene, or part of the judgment scene. We have to say part of the judgment scene. It is not the whole thing. And this is specifically sheet number 3, chapter 30, part B. This image is very common. We need to know the chapter. Chapter 30. This is a chapter for not letting Ani or Anui. Baba Haru really pushes Anui. Another one of my teachers, Dr. or Sebat Riketi Amen, at least in part agrees with that as well. So if you say Ani or Anui, we know we're talking about the same person. And you see his wife Tutu. Okay, you always see him with his wife, Ani or Anui, and Tutu. Not letting Ani's or not Anui's heart create opposition against him in the Neter's domain. So it is your heart that is a witness to whatever your behavior or your deeds in your life, which is your mind. So we see him with his wife, Tutu. Then we have the judgment scene here, very common. You have Anpu or Anubu, or you can say Anubu or Imbu. I know in Umbuwa is a word for dog. So Mbuwa, like in Bantu, in other languages, you have Mbuwa, which is a word for dog. And of course, that's what this animal is. So Mbuwa is another way of saying his name, if we were using like Bantu languages. Here we have the feather, or the shuti feather. We have the Ab, which is Ani. And here we have his soul, his Ba, which looks like him. In fact, we can even propose that the word Ba is the word for double, if you conceptually, because this is a double of him. This is him. Okay. Here are the two ladies. Judy records. Over here is Amit. And the word Amit comes from the word Amit, which means to devour or to eat, the eater, if you will. Here you have these Netaru. I know that Hem Neter Jabbar Asazi spoke about this many times. Look at the offering table, the offering upon the Kaud. Lots of vegetables here, vegetables and bread. Lots of that. And we have the name of the different Netaru here. So we know that this is Ra Harukuti. We know that because the name is written right here. Ra Harukuti. Right there. We know that this is Atum. How? His name is right here. Atum or Atumu. Atemu. You know that this is Shu. Look at the headpiece and the name is written here. Tefnut, name written here. Let's see. This would be Satesh. We know that because we know this the set animal right there. We have Newt. We know that because again, it's right here. I haven't read this in a while, so I'm just going straight across. Offset and Nebuchadnezzar. Names right here. Heru. Name right here. Let's see. Oh, Het Heru. Het Heru. Name right there. And this Sia. Yeah, Hu and Sia. Right here. Hu. There's your twisted flax. There's your quail chick right there. And of course you have the Netra right there. And then Sia or Sai right there. And there's your A40 Garden Code That's the Neter. Bam.
So people, we need to be talking about this. Like, yo, last night on Tuesday Talk, Sanjetti read the Medu Neter and explained it, and he showed us the netaru that we use very often, blah, blah, blah. This is not blah, 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 but and so forth and so forth. This is the kind of conversation that we need to be having. Not somebody dunked on somebody and it was like, yo, he posterized them. How long are we gonna keep saying that? That was fire right there. Because if you do the opening of the way, if you do anything, you're going to come across these netaru. And he just explained it. You can see it. You know where the name is physically located when you see this, and you have a certain representation of the netaru, and you can see them, and you know what they look like, what their names look like. That was dope right there, y'all. Like, seriously, when you play this back, play this part back a lot, because this will help you, like, I don't know, give you access to some of the language. I don't know if you can take this and make it bigger, but that was fire. And for everybody who's asking, how can you learn it, etc., we're gonna give you your contact. We're gonna give you Sanjetti's contact information afterwards, and then y'all can talk directly. Okay.
All right, sure.
Okay. Go ahead.
You see, there's a couple of that. I'm not going to go through all of this, but let's go right here. Every time you see red, okay, a lot of this is the beginning of recitation where a personage is about to speak. So in this particular case, this is Jed Meduin. Jed Meduin means words spoken by, means someone's about to start speaking. And so here, Jed Meduin Jehuti, and it's facing the same direction as Jehuti. So we know these are his words. Neb Jeduin, Jehuti. Over here, this is Neb Jeduin. This is Asar. There's another way of writing the name Asar. So recitation, or words spoken by the Asar, the scribe, Ani. So he's speaking right here, and it's facing the direction that he's facing. Okay? And his soul is facing that way as well. They're both facing the scale, and Jehuti is looking upon facing as well. And this is Ampu here speaking, Jed Meduin. All right, let's keep going. Get to the next. So when we speak about we always say the 42. It is located on the Paps of Ani, specifically is located on sheet 31. That's important to know. Sheet 31 is a part of the 125th chapter. This is not the whole chapter. This is like towards the end of the chapter. There's an entire whole section and paragraphs that even comes before this. There's about 200 chapters of the Pertum Heru, and we're really mostly concerned about one, which is the 125th. Very significant, however, there's a whole text that has to be explored. So, and we know it's 42 because you can pause this and count. Okay. And it begins on this side, and the text is written in retrograde fashion. Retrograde. So even though it starts on the left, you read it from right to left, okay, which is called retrograde. This is the beginning here, and you see the registers or sections. So this is the first one. So it's saying, we say like, oh, wide strider, such and such and such and such, or giving or calling out to a spirit of that particular district, or sapat. Sapat would be the word that Greeks later say no. So we need to get into saying sapat, which is translated as district. So here, this is the image of that spirit of that district, or that nature of that district. And then you see the red here. These are arms going up in like a negation. So it's ni, iri, e, isfet. Ni, which is negation, not. Iri, to do, that's the verb to do. In this case, it's in past tense. not done I. So that's this, that this would be what they call cursive Medu Neter or cursive hieroglyphs for Garden Code A1, a seated man. E, Isfet. Remember, it's read from right to left. This word for Isfet. So it always starts off, I have not done iniquity. I have not done wrong. Some will translate it as sin, but we don't want to use the Christian connotation or Abrahamic connotation. You have not done wrong. So that's the general. And then it goes down into specifics. We're not going to go, we don't have time to go through all of these, but this is what it looks like. This is your visual whenever you think of the 42 declarations of innocence. So if you read Maulana Karenga's work, Ma'at and others of his work, he speaks of this as declarations of innocence, which I think is a more positive, instead of saying negative confessions, which is a double negative. The word negative itself and confession, because confession, it gives you that Christian-y connotation. These are declarations of innocence, which is a double, which is more in a positive light. Let's keep moving. Here in the rubric, this is the translation in red of this section. This gives you the instructions on how to enter the Hall of Ma'ati before you recite, you say the 42. The correct procedure in this Hall of Justice, which is Ma'ati. One shall utter this chapter pure and clean, and clad in white garments and sandals, painted in black eye paint and anointed with myrrh. There shall be offered to him meat and poultry, emphasis meat and poultry, incense, bread, beer, and herbs when you have put this written procedure on a clean floor of ochre overlaid with earth, upon which no what? No swine or small cattle have trodden. Upon which no swine or small cattle have trodden. So before you begin ritual, you should clean yourself. You should anoint yourself with some type of like these smell goods and myrrh. That's traditional. This is the procedure. And when you commence with the offering, again, you have to be clean before you even do the offerings. This helps us in our daily practice, if you will. Purpose of African ritual. Now, I know this is a lot, y'all, so you can always go back and pause, etc. The Kemetic religion is predicated upon the belief in Koru Masaba, the supreme God responsible for the creation of the world. Koru Masaba, like most of its African counterparts, is not involved in the governance of the world. This task is left to the ancestors, who serve as the privileged intermediaries between God and the living. And as a result, the ancestors are propitiated through numerous rituals. Remember when you go back to the 4 great deeds of Ra, when he says, do not forget the West, okay? Including sacrifices and offerings. What did the 4 great deeds of Ra tell you? To give offerings to them, right? We have that same thing in the Kemetic tradition in West Africa. The ancestors are expected to protect the living and send them many blessings, in particular children. Let's go back. If you go into many of the tombs of Kemet, you will find that those ancestors in writing will ask for you to give them offerings. And in exchange, they will give you protection. Let's keep going. Procreation and marriage are indeed of paramount importance. This comes from the Encyclopedia of African Religion. This one was written by the great scholar Amma Mazama. And you can see the common ideals here that we have read earlier about ancestor veneration and giving offerings, rituals. Here's a limestone stela of Megegi and his wife Henit, showing them both, just like Anui or Ani and Tutu. So this is Megegi and his wife Henit. Look at these offerings: bread, beer, bird, heads of I think it's a gazelle, oxen head, bird, vegetables. And this is Hotep Dinasut, an offering for which the king gives. This starts right up here. Neb of Jeddu. So it begins there. Of course, you have an entire text here. This is a Hotep slab in stone. So let's break this down. Hotep, peace, grace. To pacify, sit, or rest. So that's more of a verb. This is the verb form. Of course, see the Medu Neter here. Write that down. Hotep as a noun, food, meal offerings, bread. Hotep is also incense, because incense is given as a type of food for spirit. Middle Egyptian or Middle Kemetic, Hotep, to rest, sit. Kilingen, that we spoke about earlier. Katepi, same consonantal structure, meaning to sit. So in Hotep ensemble references, the Hotep, it actually comes from this root or further in the stem, tep, meaning on or upon or in, tepa, food, nourishment, drink. There is more research behind this to substantiate it, but this is just to give you a general outlook. In many parts of Africa, adult members of the family, and especially the heads of family, pour out beer, water, milk, or some other beverage on the ground for the spirits of the family. In many countries, such as Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria, Uganda, and elsewhere, there are often family shrines in the housestead or behind the houses set apart. Look at that, set apart. What was that question earlier? You said, what is the word for sacred? It comes from the Kemetic word jesser, which means to what? Set aside or set apart. For remembering the departed, from the Introduction to African Religion by the now ancestor John S. Beatty, or John Beatty. This matches much of what we're reading about in Kemet, doesn't it? And this is a Hotep table showing the symbols of vessels which will hold liquids like beer, wine, water. Here's an ox leg. This is a bird. This is bread here. This is not an alien, by the way. This is a bird. Okay. It's not a gray alien from some other galaxy. So we need to stop that. Okay. This is a Hotep Dinasut, has a Hotep Dinasut formula that starts here on the left. We know that because we can read the text. And then we can understand the detailed significance of this. Begins here. Hotep Dinasut, Asar, there's Kenti, and then we can go on and so forth. We use this in some classes. I'm not going to go over this, but as it just breaks down the Hotep Dinasut formula, an offering that the king gives to Asar and Anpu, that they may give a voice offering of all these things here of bread, beer, birds, alabaster, etc. All good, pure things which the Neter lives, to the spirit of the name of that person. All right, we're going to keep going. Now, again, I know this is it's a lot. However, you can pause and go back and review. So this is a continuation of that daily ritual. Now, think about all the things that we already went through. It leads up to this. Feeding the Neter and the ancestral king, the daily offering meal to Amun-Ra and Amenhotep I. Amenhotep I is the second king of the 18th dynasty. Okay, here are the catalog numbers of these two artifacts that we need to know about. Reconstructed Astrakhan, coming from Upper Kemet, Waset, 1920 dynasties. And here's another one. And then here we have Medu Neter of that daily meal in an offering. Straight across. I'm not going to go through, the whole lesson here on it, but this is to show you what this looks like. Okay. This here is the coronation name of Amenhotep I. In fact, technically, you're not supposed to be using Amenhotep I or Amenhotep because that's his birth name. That's his first name. And, you know, we are not to be using the first name of the king because it's rude. You use his coronation name, which is Jesser Kara. Jesser Kara. It's almost like calling your parents by the first name as if you're equal. Okay. But, you know, of course, this comes down to us, so we use it for familiarity purposes. But we want to include the coronation name. So Jesser Kara Amenhotep first, if you will. So we kind of know what we're talking about here. All right. Here's some translations. You know, we're not going to go through all of this. This is simply the words, you know, that of the for the dedication of that meal. Meal, the Iharu, which is another way of saying offerings. Red pots of water. While you're offering the red pots of water, you're saying, "Oh, Amen, take to yourself what is in the Iharu." It being red. Talk about the red pots of water. So you can pause this and read over it. Then you can check my transliteration if you like. Again, here's the catalog numbers that you can look at. All right. Again, here's some more libation. So this is a bowl, outpouring water. Again, this is symbolic. You know, it doesn't go over like that literally, but we know the symbolism. Okay, he's a scribe. We know that because we can see the sesh symbol here.
That is beautiful.
Okay. See the sister here sitting? This is an ancestor. Ancestors. A priest with the leopard skin, once again, is continuing the ancestral ritual of feeding ancestors. They're giving them water. And even in the spirit realm, you're being fed and being delighted. Look at, again, the wife is allowing to smell the what? Again, like papyrus and lotus flowers. These are beautiful things that we valued. Okay. Feeding the ancestors. Again, over here, this is West African tradition. Feeding ancestors. Here, feeding ancestors. This priest is continuing, and you know this may be could be the this may be a wife of this person, a priestess, etc. They're doing this function. Okay, see the leopard skin again. It's very common. Even in South Africa, they still use the leopard skin as the priests. Right now, as we speak, this is the kaut table. An offering table. See all the bread here. See the plants. You see an oxen leg, the rear leg, etc. Same concept. On the surface, it looks different, but is it really different? Conceptually, it's identical. Again, on the left, we've seen this earlier. Perhaps Ani giving offering Hotep over here in the Sheshe Legba tradition. Feeding Egungun, ancestors, offerings, Ebo. Right here. Look at that. Plant, 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 plants, fruit, fruit. What do we see in the pyramid text? Fruit and vegetables, correct? Okay. Probably some grain, which is equivalent to bread. So, you know, you probably got some rice up in here. White. Is this really different? No. Same thing. Again, it's feeding Eshu. Same thing. Plants, flowers, plants, flowers. This, in fact, see this right here? This tree almost looks like this one.
Okay. It sure does.
Okay, look at that. This is a beautiful offering. Look at that. It makes you want to eat, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
So, Sanjeti, so I have a question.
Hmm.
This question came up before. Can you speak on offerings that you have on an ancestral altar? So let me start over. On an ancestral altar where you have your offerings of food, do you eat the food or do you leave it and then throw the food away?
Okay.
In our day, in our practical, usage of our altar, ancestral altar, and our offerings.
Okay. So you do one of two things. Either you, after the food is given to the ancestors, so they're eating it, of course, symbolically. You know, we may say spiritually, but it is symbolic.
Mhm.
After the ritual is over and you close the ritual out, you do one of two things. Either you eat it, or you can actually one of three things. Either you eat it, you donate it to those who are in need. Okay, it's called community service, or donating to people who are poor and don't have what you have, or you put outside for the animals to eat. It never goes to waste. You don't just throw it in the trash.
That's right. So someone asked me that, and that's what I said. I said, "There's no throwing away. We don't do that. Everything gets recycled. Either you're gonna eat it, or you're going, or I told this person not to throw it away because I eat it.
Hmm.
That's how I do my ancestral altar. And putting it outside for the animals to eat is different than throwing it away, because that is a part of the life cycle, and that's
Exactly.
not wasteful when you give it to the animals. So when you live in New York City, my suggestion, because we talk about being practical, I suggest you do not put it outside for the animals to eat, because there will be some animals who will eat it. So I just do something simple enough for me to eat at the time when I'm at my ancestral altar. So thank you for answering that question. I'm going to make sure this person sees this.
Hmm. And when you eat it, what you're doing is you're not eating it for yourself. You're eating it on behalf of your ancestor.
Yep. Right. Hmm.
Okay. All
Hmm.
right, let's keep going. Wisdom literature. All right. So this comes to the instructions addressed to Merikara, Moscow Papyrus 1658, and the Papyrus Carlsberg 6. Justice comes to him distilled, shaped in the sayings of the ancestors. Copy your forefathers, your ancestors. See their words endure in books. Open, read them, copy their knowledge. He who is taught becomes skilled. Here's one of your instructions. This comes from the body of text called the Sebayit, the Books of Wise Instructions. Ptah-Hotep, we should all know who Ptah-Hotep is. From the catalog called Presi Papyrus, lines 52 to 59, it says, "Do not be arrogant because of your knowledge. Take counsel with the ignorant as well as the wise. For the limits of knowledge have not been set, nor has anyone reached them. Wisdom is rarer than emeralds. It can be found amongst maize at the grindstones." That's my favorite one. So because we get people who they get a little bit of information and then suddenly they jump on YouTube and act like they're teachers. No. Okay. This great ancestor implores us not to be that way. Do not take your knowledge and then think that, all right, I've reached the pinnacle, or I get to act like I'm an expert. Okay. Wisdom can be found anywhere, and no one has ever reached the limits of knowledge, and nor has anyone. You can't even set the knowledge. This here is the mentality of a scientist. Why? Because a scientist will read a million books, and the scientist realizes the more he or she learns, the more he or she realizes he or she does not know. But so a religious fanatic will think, I read one book and I know everything now. It's opposite of someone who's scientifically minded or who is humbled by the knowledge of the universe.
Sanjeti, I want to jump in and say this. When you start reading and learning Kemetic, just Kemetic spirituality, just the culture. Sanjetti hit the nail on the head.
Kemetic Kimoyo. There you go.
Oh, Kemetic Kimoyo. The more, that's right. The more you read and learn, the more you feel like, dag, I don't know nothing. So don't let that overwhelm you. It's not like you don't know anything. You're gaining knowledge. You just, once you learn one thing, you realize that's like a whole world that exists that's waiting for you to learn it. And we come from the oldest everything on the planet. So it's not going to be something that you do in 1 or 2 years. Just keep going.
Yeah. And when you read works by the University Kemet Press, members such as Takaka Majral, a great scholar and elder, Yara Aneb, great scholar and elder, both of them really good friends of mine that I look up to, and of course they're in their close associates. We begin with the beginning of the universe. That's where we begin our history.
Period.
That's a whole nother ball game. When you say, What is your origin? My origin is the beginning of the universe. But don't take that phrase or that saying and without study behind it. Don't take that and be arrogant because of your knowledge now. You take that and say that should be your direction of study. Slow down, stop talking, study.
Period.
Stop jumping on YouTube the second you learned a new thing. Because that's not your signal to act like you're expert, because that is the arrogance, being too wide of heart, if you will, if you thought about it in Kemetic terms. All right, let's keep going. Here's from the tomb.
I'm sorry, one quick question. It was about one last question about what to do with the offerings. We have a comment in Vodun: we eat, donate, and bury the leftover after the Vodun ceremony. And there was also another question that said someone heard that about burying the offering by a tree. Have you heard of that? And can you speak on the way that it's buried in the Vodun ceremonies?
In a limited capacity. However, it still matches morals and ethics of dealing with offerings and how offerings. In fact, I'm glad that question brought up, because it brings a point that I actually forgot to bring up. So thank you for that question. I'm not reading who asked it. African tradition, or kimoyo, not only is it great psychologically, it is good for the psychological health or mental health for African people, including African Americans, African Caribbeans, etc. It's also beneficial to the environment because it promotes a cycle. So when you bury the leftovers, it decomposes properly and feeds the plants, and the plants grow and you feed upon the plant. And then eventually when your body goes back to the earth, it's a cycle. When you bury it next to a tree, there are traditions where we bury our ancestors next to trees or in tree trunks in Africa. In fact, my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, in the cemetery, my family chose to bury her next to a tree. Right now in California, my grandmother's buried next to a tree. Now, whether they understood that in-depthness with Connection to Africa, I don't know, but it's still there. And the food buried next to the tree does what? It feeds the roots. So this is one of his why African tradition is beneficial to your psychological health, and it's beneficial to the environment by default.
By default, because we in our right mind. Ain't no need to be wasted.
Just by you doing it, it's beneficial to the environment. Let's keep going. The tomb of the scribe Paheri, right there on the right. And who is he sitting with? His wife. He says this: I knew the nectar who dwells in the people, who knew him. I knew this from that. This is the 18th dynasty. I think this is the 18th dynasty. My memory serves me correct. It's either 18th or 19th. Now, we didn't have to wait into the Abrahamic tradition to say that God is within me. Okay. Right. It's already here. We already have it. We already seen it in the Shabaka stone, which said it in a general sense that Ptah dwells in everybody as the tongue and everything, in all the animals and all the plants and all that kind of stuff. We already seen it there. Here's another place. Completely different time period. The Shabaka stone, well, that they call it, was copied in 25th dynasty. We're talking about the 700s, 7 and 600s BC. The Tomb of Paheri, we're talking 1400s maybe BC. You know, so this is like 700-800 years before the Shabaka stone was written, or that text was copied onto stone. I knew the Neter who dwells in the people. So this is not even an individualistic thing. He said, I knew the Neter who dwells in the people. So this is a collective thing, not an individual thing that we get in the European philosophies of individualism. Okay. In Congo philosophy, that revealed to us by the ancestor Fukuyama, Dr. Fukuyama, an African cosmology of the Bantu Congo, he says, if you know the community, you know God. If you know the community, you know God. I should have put that in there. All right, little typo. If you know the community, you know God. There's a conceptual match right there. Someone asks, we're the ancestors of Kemetic people. You have to go to Congo because they still preserve. If you know the community, you know God. Congo philosophy. I knew the Neter who dwells in the people, who dwells in the community. Come on with it. Why do we need to compare Kemetic literature and concepts to Greek philosophy, to the biblical narrative, to the Quranic narrative? We don't need it to validate African tradition. We can use African tradition to validate African tradition. Pause on that one. But how will we even come across this? Because we put the academic study in it, the intellectual study. Intellectual study gives you this. Not, let me use European concepts of dichotomy, of splitting, spirit from intellect. That's European stuff. Or things that comes out of Asia about separating yourself, right. Like the body is the lower self. That's hogwash. There's nothing in here that says that the body is the lower self. All that's coming out of European Orientalism, where they study non-European cultures and secularize it and put their names on it. Which is sacrilege, if you will. It's disrespectful. But again, you get this knowledge from scholastic study, methods, critical thinking. And this may sound counterintuitive, but straight up, you don't get this from mysticism. You get it from academic study. Academic study doesn't mean you study the way Europeans study per se. But keep in mind, they did not create academic study. They did not create, let me say it again, they did not create linear thinking either. Because we'll get into this, European is linear thinking and we're circular. They didn't create it. We created linear thinking, not them. Thinking things in to say linear, like it belongs to Europeans, that is anti-ma'at, because the word ma'at comes from ma'at, which means that which is what? Straight. Come on with it. So we need to stop this. If you meet a conversant, now this is for the arguments that we be having out here. If you meet a conversant in his moment and determined one more accomplished than you, bend your arms, bow your back, challenge your mind with respect to him, and he won't be able to match you. Okay, these are morals and ethics on how to deal with somebody who's argumentative. Number two, if you find a conversant in his moment who's your equal, who is on your level, you make your accomplishment become more than his by being quiet while he speaks badly. Pause this, snap it, contemplate, apply. Instructions on Amina Moped. Watch this. I love this one. Man is clay and straw, and the God is his builder. He tears down and he builds up daily. He makes 1,000 poor by his will. He makes 1,000 men into leaders. Chapter 25 of the Instructions of Amina Moped. I love this one because I always share this with my brothers of the craft from the Masonic lodges. When we speak about the architect of the universe, if you will, I pull this and show this to the brothers. That the concept that the creator is a builder, architect, we already have it in Africa, not just in Kemet. It's in other places. Man is claimed strong, the God is his builder. All right, so here's some other comparisons here. Beginning of teachers' instructions of life and instructions for well-being. Every rule and relations with elders, look at that. For conduct towards magistrates. These are, like officials, government officials. Knowing how to answer one who speaks, to apply to the one who sends a message, so as to direct him on the path of life, to make him prosperous on earth, and to let his heart enter its shrine. Enter its shrine is very important for us, and steer clear of evil. So that's check that. That's the title, y'all. That's the title of Amina Moped Instructions. He also says, do not move the markers on the borders of fields, nor shift the position of the measuring cord. Do not be greedy for a cubit of land. So that's tell you, don't try to take more than your own share. Next, better is a bushel given to you by the netcher than 5,000 through wrongdoing. Better is poverty in the hand of netcher than wealth in a storehouse. In other words, you want to acquire things righteously. Okay. Let's keep going. I did do a comparison here so you can see the concepts, parallels for parental respect. So we'll start on the right. This is what we're familiar with. And again, this is not to give validity to Kemet. This is to show that we had it before them. Honor your father and mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God has given you. Exodus. We did it before that. We said, pour libation for your mother and your father who are resting in the valley. Instructions on the 18th dynasty. And then later, in maybe almost 1,000 years later, Ankh Shanki says, serve your father and mother that you may go and prosper. Again, we already had it. Present day significance. Here's our conclusion here. Represents our antiquity through the physical records. That's why you study Kemet. Demonstrates thousands of years of success. A model of African collective work and cooperation. And it's a connecting thread for the African mind in various cultural expressions. The end. All right. So maybe I can stop the share. Are you able to stop share?
I think you have to. Oh, wait, I'll just do this. There we go.
Okay. All right.
Well, so I just want to say that I had another guest scheduled for this evening, and this person was unable to join due to a somewhat of an emergency. So I was like, who can I get texting people, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yo, Sanjetti, da-da-da-da-doom. He got back to me. We trying to figure it out. We working it out. So I want y'all to know when Sanjetti woke up this morning, he was not going to be my guest on Tuesday Talk. He came through in the clutch for you, girl. I just want to make sure that y'all know that he came through and gave us the superb, supreme information. Okay, so give him an extra thanks for not going home and chilling with his wife and his babies, but staying up and helping me out and bringing all of this beautiful, wonderful knowledge to you all this evening. So I just want to make sure that that's a shout out. And a lot of you want to know everything about Sanjetti. I'm going to put his information in the chat right now. Sanjetti, what's the best way for people to contact you?
Okay, you go to my email. I'll put it on the side here. I'll just type it in here.
Okay.
SanjettiAnkra@gmail.com. All right. Okay.
I have it.
Yeah. Okay, you got it. Yeah, put the Cash App in there. You have PayPal.
Yeah, let me do the Cash App right quick while I am looking at your email. It is Sanjetti. Let's hit up. Everybody needs to hit up his Cash App, y'all, because everybody learned so much tonight. So that is his Cash. Is that it? Yes, that's his Cash App. It's Sanjetti at $Sanjetti at Cash App. And I'm going to put this up, Sanjetti.
Yeah, if you feel like you this has helped you, this is giving you some maybe some new direction or added to your direction, some type of value, your donations helps with research and collecting more books and things such as that to continue. So all donations are definitely appreciated. Show your boy some love.
Yes, definitely. One of the things that's really good about being in a community where people actually study is you have people like Sanjetti who at a moment's notice can give us close to 3 hours of scholarly information that's always presented in an organized way, that's helpful, and that can help you understand conceptually. You see the proof, the receipts. He came with the receipts. And also a way to use it practically in your daily, your daily life. Okay. So his email is in the chat, and all of your questions about, someone asked, does he have a curriculum? How can I learn more, etc. You have his email. Please ask him and you guys can connect. If you missed the email or the information for whatever reason, you can always reach out to us at the Shrine of Ma'at and DM us, and we will, like, I see the DMs, and so do Anika and Jabari, and they can let me know. Or he's a member, he is an initiate and part of the royal and a royal scribe. Let me say that again because I messed it up. He is an initiate and a royal scribe at the Temple of Anu. So earlier when I introduced him and I said a brother from another mother, what I meant was the Shrine of Ma'at and the Temple of Anu are a brother and sister shrine, just like we sit here in the little 4 boxes, we right next to each other. That's how we roll the Shrine of Ma'at and the Temple of Anu. So if you really need any information, contact the Temple of Anu. You don't even have to contact us. So you can just take me out of the equation, contact the Temple of Anu. They can get the message to him. But his email is in the chat, guys. Okay? So thank you for being with us. We still have 50 people on. So that's how, and it's 11:30 on the East Coast. So thank you so much. I'm glad that this was very helpful. It's also helpful for me as well. And we will see you next week for another edition of Tuesday Talk. Shema Hotep, go forth in peace. Thank you all for your support.